So, are you thinking about starting an art journaling practice? Did you watch my last video and you now have all the basic materials to get started, but you just don't know the first steps to getting ink or paint or collage on a page? Well, join me as I walk you through the creation of an art journal spread from scratch, where I'm just making it all up as I go along. First, welcome back to my channel, Dara Creates. I'm Dara and I'm into all things visually creative. Here on this channel, my goal is to help those who are dealing with high stress and burnout tap into a different way of taking care of themselves by tapping into creativity that they may have ignored for years or even don't recognize that they have. I mean, let's just play to play. So join me in some art projects to help you get back to your childhood creativity, which could help you with relaxation and stress management, and hopefully help you gain a new sense of clarity in your day-to-day life. And you can also join me as I explore this new life that I've built for myself as a corporate escapee turned mixed media artist who just so happens to have been diagnosed with ADHD late in life. So who knows what kind of shenanigans we might get into here. So it's been a hot minute since my last video, but I was under the weather for a few weeks with some kind of hellish cold or flu or something. I managed to film this video in parts during that time, but I never quite got around to the editing or doing any kind of intro facing the camera. So instead, you're getting some footage of my first day walking my little mutt more than just a block here in Mexico City. Oops, thought I'd get a shot of Ginger for you, but she just started to assume the position, so don't look. So, here I am. I pulled out a number of supplies here just to have them nearby because honestly, I have no firm game plan at all for what I'm going to create. I've got my tempera paint sticks, my cheap matte craft acrylic paint because both of those dry pretty quickly. I've got my watercolors just because I love them. And then I've got some really basic tools like water brushes, black waterproof fine liners, some white mark making pens, a pair of scissors, and a few magazines. Now, I'm going to use one of the empty, inexpensive craft cover notebooks that I shared during my last video, and doing so means coming face to face with the dreaded blank page. Welcome to this experience, because whether you decide to continue with art journaling or you decide to move into a sketchbook kind of approach instead, the blank page is something that you're going to face again and again. It can be weirdly intimidating to many people because there are just so many possibilities. You don't know quite where to start at times, and for most of us, we spent most of our lives trying to do the quote-unquote right thing, to not make any mistakes, to do things perfectly, so you can often feel pretty paralyzed. I thought it might be a good start to begin with something that doesn't require any real drawing or painting, just to take the pressure off. So I've collected a few magazines and thought that collage might be a good way to go. It's something approachable, it's something easy, and while I have other supplies ready and available, honestly, you could simply start with a pair of scissors and some glue, or a glue stick, or some tape. I'm just going to jump in. You're going to watch me flip through some pages here. I'm going to tell you my thinking as I look at some of the options, and with no end goal in mind other than filling a spread, which is the two open face-to-face pages. Okay, so I am starting off here with a home design magazine, and it's interesting. I find home decor and architecture magazines to be great for finding abstract colors and shapes and textures. That's just something in particular that I find interesting, but for you, you may be more drawn to images, maybe people, Maybe it's text or headlines. It's really about figuring out what it is that you like. But when I start to flip through magazines like this, I call it collage harvesting, and I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum so this video isn't 3 hours long. But here you can see that I'm cutting out this little image. It looks like maybe it's the texture from a wall. There's something about this that has drawn me in. It's not the most colorful image at all, but there's something about the texture there in the stonework that I like. So I just cut that out and I set it aside. Now, there's something about this that I really like. It's the shapes, it's the angles, it's the shadow, it's the color. That red isn't something that I'm typically drawn to, but something about it I kind of dig. So I just ripped the whole page out and set it to the side. Now this page, again, it's something about the angles that I like, and you have to forgive the sheen from overhead. That's one of the downsides of using a shiny magazine. So I'm not going to spend too much time trying to figure out what it is that I like or how I can use it, but I just tore the page out and I'm setting it aside. There's something there about the texture in the curtains that I thought was interesting, but wasn't enough to make me pull it out. There I was pointing out the painting that was on the wall. That might have been something that was of interest to you. You could pull that out and maybe, cut it out and repeat the pattern across the page. That could be interesting. Here, these words stop me. I mean, it says the artful life after all. So of course I'm going to pull that. And in this case, I decided to just rip it out. It's interesting because sometimes I like things to be kind of organic, just kind of ripped out or cut out. But that's part of what this exercise is for you, to figure out what it is that you like as you play around with collage and with other approaches within your art journaling. Sometimes you never know what you like until you give it a try, and this is a really low stakes way in which to do it. Now, that is interesting. This page, not the jewelry, but there's something about the contrast between the light blue and the dark blue and that fold. Like maybe I could put something inside there to replace the earrings, and then on the other page the texture on that headboard is kind of interesting to me. This is a page that's kind of interesting. I'm just looking on the back to see if there's anything I care about on that side more. This is interesting. It's the shapes, it's the angles, it's the colors. Definitely setting that one aside because you never know. I like the texture on that back wall, so I'll rip that out. Again, never know. And what I'll do is, if I'm not using these pieces in this art journal, I have like a little envelope that I use to file these things away for future use. And I have a folder. I won't say I have a system. I have a folder. A folder that goes in a box. It gets to be problematic. There I'm looking at the word creative and incubator. There's some text on that page that has to do with art and creativity, so I might use that in the future. Those rugs are interesting. They could be interesting background for like a photo that you might put on a page, but I'm going to skip those for now. I'm torn. Especially that bottom line, because it's a little more abstract. That's really interesting, but I'm going to keep it moving. Okay, I love the text on this page. Next big things. I love the artwork behind this woman too. But it's the text, this could be something great for like a vision board. Maybe it's your next big things and you highlight collage images or drawings or just the words listing out the things you're looking for the next year. Okay, so I will no longer bore you with more flipping through the magazine. I have all of my images that I've torn out, and now I'm just going to go through and start to play around a little bit and figure something out. So I'm just starting somewhere in the book, no rhyme or reason. First, I'm going to see how I might lay out next big things. No idea what might go with this, but Just looking at it, looks like it would fit on the page. And then there was on the following page this other image of the words, but I don't really have any ideas for what else I would do. So let me set that to the side for a second. Let's see what else I've got to work with. So the Artful Life, that feels a little bit like a no-brainer because I feel like that's what I'm living. That's that textured wall that I was drawn to from the very beginning. Those two could kind of go nicely together. This, I don't know why I'm kind of drawn to this or how I might use it. I'd have to cut out the earrings because those aren't important to me. I'd have to fit something else kind of inside that fold as an envelope, but I don't know what I do. This page is interesting, but again, don't have any immediate ideas for how I'd use it. But I love the angles and the levels. Maybe I could fold it in some way, kind of use it in part, but nothing's jumping out at me, so don't know what I would do with that. Okay, now we're back to this red one that really drew me in from the very beginning. This one's kind of calling to me. I really like the upper part of this image, like that upper angle where you can see the shadow, but where you can also see the tan. I can't fit the whole thing on this art journal spread, so I'm not quite sure how I would lay it out, but I need the spread to be more than just what's on the image here, so it would end up being covered up in some way. So I'm not quite sure what I would do with it, but I do love the angle. So let's see, I could put it on its side, and then I could get part of the angle, but maybe in contrast to that, I could use part of that other image, that wall texture that I really like. The dark shading part of that texture kind of coordinates with the background tan, but it's so angular, I wonder if I could pull in something a little more organic to kind of juxtapose the big angles of the red image and then the angles of the other. So I just happen to have this little piece of craft paper that I'd ripped apart from something, I think it was from a bag, laying on my desk next to me. I could kind of layer that in some way, and that kind of could tie the two together, but also kind of be in contrast to the two. That could be kind of interesting. Now, here's the other option. This one is definitely, I think, more me. The colors are me, for sure. They're more vibrant. This fits almost perfectly on the spread. And I love the angles, but then it's just a matter of what else would I do? Would I write? I certainly could just write something on the page, but what the heck would I write? That is the question. I don't really have anything in mind, so not sure about that. This I love, but I think, and I love the live artfully, I'm definitely going to use that, but I think I love the image more as inspiration for a painting that I might want to do. Maybe like a place I've stayed in Airbnb or a place I used to live rather than an art journal page. Love the texture of the wall. Love that. But it doesn't have that some of the tan colors that were in that other image that I was looking at with the red angular page. So it doesn't fit quite as well, but I do like it. Alright, so I think I'm going to go back to this one. And now it's just a matter of how I lay out this red side. And do I want to take up the whole page? Kind of like that the top part is just ripped out. I like that it's a little organic and not just cut straight across there. So I think I'm going to keep that rough edge and then just cut this so that I get some of the underlying page and only part of this on the page itself, so that I can see some of the, like a lot more of the craft paper underneath. I just have to figure out how I want to position that. Kind of maybe tilt it up like that. Again, I don't want it to be perfect. I don't want it to look too designed. I don't want it to look straight, like, kind of off kilter like that feels better to me. And then I'll trim that down. I think the underlying page is looking a little plain though. Okay, so what I'm thinking is rather than keep that very light yellowish paper underneath all of this, is maybe I can do something underneath like a dark, very, very dark red, almost black, to kind of match the shadows in the cutout on the right hand side. But in the meantime, I'm just going to trim the white off of the textured wall piece so that kind of stands on its own on the left side. Okay, so yes, I like that layout. Definitely think this calls for some words of some sort, and I really don't have anything in mind. Like if this was a day where, you know, I was stressed out about something, or I was trying to make a decision about something, this could be a situation where I left the page blank and just did some of my own journaling. But sometimes I actually like to use just text, not so much that you can read it, but just, you know, just text on a standalone basis as a visual image, as a part of the layout itself. So I'm just flipping through looking for some text that I can pull in, and I'm looking at a magazine that's in Spanish, so it's a little less sort of intuitively intelligible when you look at it. So, you know, just looking for some Spanish text. I'll probably, even if I use it, glue it down upside down or vertically or something so you can't even really immediately read it. Okay, so now I've pulled out some handy dandy sheets of wax paper. I usually put these underneath the pages so that I can paint freely and don't have to worry about the paint getting on the other pages of the art journal and then they just stick together. If they do, it's not that big of a deal. Once they dry, you can separate them. But if you're working on a surface that you don't want to get paint on, this is a good way to protect your surface. My intent here was to mix a really, really, really kind of dark eggplant color, but you know, with, you know, red and just enough black to make it almost like a dark purple. And at times it looked like that was going to happen, but in the end it just turned out being black. I was trying to be fancy. I should have just used black paint because I knew that I was going to glue down the magazine cutout on the right hand side. I just didn't cover all of that page. I figured why waste the paint, because that would be covered, but I did paint most of the page. Okay, coming back in, and I am just going to use my handy dandy glue stick and glue on this page, just trying to figure out placement. How low do I want it? How high do I want it? And I, of course, realized that I needed to put down the craft paper first, so I just crunched that up a little bit so I'd get a few more wrinkles in that first. So I laid that down where I wanted it. One of the things that really irks me is when things are just way too orderly. So I'm cutting off the extra on the edge. And then I decided to even cut off the extra that was going to be underneath the magazine collage page, because I knew that would just make it a little extra lumpy under there. Not necessary, but I did it. I did glue the one side down first, just because it's crossing over the crease in the journal, so I wanted to just make sure that this was going to glue down and not impede the way that the journal itself folds. You can watch me do this. I think watching me do it rather than explaining it will make the most sense to you. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm using a Yoo-hoo glue stick. I think this is one that is made in Germany. I like it a little bit better than Elmer's because these are archival. So, you know, again, I'm not intending to hang this on the wall because I don't even know what it's going to be yet, but it's nice to know that, like, when I pick this thing up in 2 or 3 years, like, this paper's not going to come, you know, I'm not going to open up the page and the paper's not going to fall to the floor. That said, there are other glue sticks that would be just as good. You just want to look for some that are acid-free and archival. I'll list links to a couple of options in the description box for you. Okay, so I have finished up my placement pretty much. Now I had to fiddle with it for a while. I kind of wanted to move it to a different place, but then I had the blank spot at the bottom, so I just placed it where it made the most sense, where I didn't have to repaint. Now, I know that I want to go with the lighter colored wall texture piece on the left side, but I'm thinking about a way to tie it in a little more closely with the image on the right side. And since I didn't use all of that, I decided maybe I'll pull in some of the brown from that side, kind of use those two pieces together just to build some cohesiveness across the page. And again, I'm making these decisions on the fly. I don't know who said it or where I heard it, but there's something about making art just being a series of decisions. And my feeling is that, the more decisions you make when it comes to doing anything creative, the better decisions you'll make. And that's not about the outcome of those decisions being better. It's more about the decisions feeling more authentic to you because you have a better sense of what it is that you like. So now I'm just playing with placement, and this is one of the reasons why collage is a really cool way to get started art journaling, because it is low pressure. You can play around with placement, with shape, with design. You can, move things around until it feels right to you. And if it doesn't feel right, you can go back to the drawing board. So in this case, I'm taking a much smaller sliver of that cream colored wall texture, and I'm taking the strips on the other side, and I'm using them horizontally to kind of create some cohesiveness across the spread overall. And I'm using the other piece on the other side horizontally as well. So just making it up as I go along. Okay, so at this point, I am feeling pretty good about how this is coming along. When I do things like this, it kind of surprises me because I had no idea where this was going to land. And, this is where it really does feel like play, because you just never know. The other thing is, sometimes it's about editing. Like, when do you stop? That's another part of it, right? Is like, you can go too far. And right now, I don't think I am quite far enough, but I think that there's a lot of cohesion across the page. I don't necessarily like that empty black bar across the top, but I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. And I'm feeling like there is room for some words. But again, I'm not really in a space where I have any words of my own that I want to put on the page, so it's time to go for some resources. Okay, so I remembered that I have this little sticker set that I bought years ago, and it is black and white little, poetic-ish sort of sayings. And I thought, hey, this might be a good something that I can work onto the page, and using words in black would actually probably be good, or on a black background, and I could work those into a light strip somewhere on the page. So I found a little saying here that I thought was a good one, and I will link to those in the description box for you as well. Okay, somewhere I've lost a little bit of footage, but because I found something there and it was just one little statement, it wasn't enough to give me the idea for something that I could put across the whole page. I went to Instagram, and there's someone that I follow there who does poetry, and there was a poem that I found that says, in 2025, shed every skin that does not fit, even if they tell you that you are cold-blooded, and when they try to stop your growth, swallow them whole. Whatever it was, something about that, I loved it. I was like, that's what I'm working on to this page. And maybe it was like, because it was a little creepy, and the colors, the red, the black, something about that. I was like, that's going on here. So I thought it fit perfectly onto the craft paper section of the page. So I wrote it in lightly. I am not winning any awards for my handwriting, but that's when the fine liner came in. Went over that a few times just to darken it up. Thought that came out looking pretty good. I really put the emphasis on the swallow them whole section, which had me thinking about like a snake. And I was like, okay, maybe I can work a snake in here somewhere. Maybe like having a snake eating its tail, like in a circle around the words. Swallow them whole, like that would be pretty cool. So I figured, let me pull out, I had a tape roll, so I was like, let me see if I can do like a circle around the words. So I drew that, and it was a little wonky. It was kind of like that would have been a great idea if I had planned to do that from the very beginning. So I figured maybe I could just highlight those words in some way rather than like trying to draw a snake around it. Never drawn a snake before, but you can also see there on the right, I did drop in that little sticky that said creativity takes courage. So anyway, I decided to go ahead and, kind of just draw this thick circle around swallow them whole in white. White pens are so hard, so I tried a couple different kinds here with varying degrees of success. Really wish I had thought about this before, because it would have been great to lay down the white and then letter on top, to be honest. In the end, I found a acrylic paint pen that worked better, but then you can see on the right there, some of it kind of flicked out and spilled on the right hand side. So I figured, well, what the hell, might as well make some white splotches. So I just kind of shook the pen in a way so that I got some white splotches all over the page a bit, which I kind of like the look of. Splotches on pages are good. I don't know what it is about splotches, but that worked well. So at this point I was thinking, all right, Dara, this should probably be done. Like, this is probably less being more. But one thing about me, is really hard for me to do anything without some gold paint. So, and I kept thinking about the whole snake thing and the fact that I couldn't pull that off. So I decided to pull out my laptop and look for a picture of a snake. And I found this one that I kind of liked. He was dangling off a branch, and I figured, let me see if I can draw it. And I found this vellum paper. I have no idea what brand it is. And I kind of thought, well, let me try to draw it. And because it's sort of sheer, it can sit on top of something on the page and you can see what's, behind it. That would be pretty cool. So I managed to draw it. It doesn't look too bad. And couldn't quite figure out where to put it. And then I figured, well, I want some gold on the page. And it looks like it should be hanging off of something. So let me just go ahead and create like a gold bar across the top for it to hang off of. So I pulled out my handy dandy gold paint and got to work. Just put a strip of gold across the top of the page and figured, well, once you do that, certainly it can't hurt to put more gold on the page. And this is where I think I could have stopped, but of course I didn't. At this point, it's starting to look kind of Art Deco to me for some reason, but, I didn't stop. I kept going. More gold. What can I say? And thickened up the gold a little bit further on the top, so I would have something to really anchor the snake to. And even before the snake, I thought it looked pretty good. Never stop with my mark making. And now the downside of this clear thing was, okay, how if I glue it all the way down, it's going to have like a funky, I don't know, the clearness of the vellum will show the glue all the way through. So I decided to just put the glue at the very top, because that hopefully won't look too bad, as it's kind of if it's supposed to be attached to that little gold bar at the top, it's not bad to have the glue show through as opaque. And then I just had to trim a little bit of the vellum off the top of the page. Press it down. Make sure that it was adhered correctly. Kind of do a few little fine liner touch-ups to try my best to make it look like it was actually hanging off that gold, I don't know, bar, branch, whatever I'm calling it, at the top of the page. And a couple little final touches. Decided to put some little spots on the snake. Funny enough, I didn't know at the time, but we have now entered the year of the snake with the Lunar New Year. And somewhere towards the end here, I went in and put some little black dots. I think that was definitely a misstep. But all in all, I don't think it looks too bad for an art journal page where I had no idea what I was going to come up with. So this was fun in the end. I think that this is a great example of how you can create an art journal page. Even if you have nothing on your mind in particular, it's a great way to just flex your creativity. Hopefully you've learned something here to allow you to sit down and try a little art journaling on your own. And I will be back very soon with my next video to share with you some next level art journaling supplies in case you're interested. Thank you so much. Please like the video, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hope to see you soon. Bye.